This isn't exactly the reaction I was looking for.
Well, I've never seen anything like this before. Is a person just like me, like you?
Dexter Morgan isn't a hero. He's a psychopath doing community service, and somehow, we still root for him. There's something almost endearingly naive about wondering why no one in Dexter ever pauses to say, well, at least he only kills bad people. It's as if everyone in Miami Metro forgot to check the morally gray box when filling out their character sheets. But that's the point. In Dexter's world, morality isn't gray, it's red, and there's a lot of it. The show's genius and its discomfort stem from that simple dissonance. Dexter Morgan is not a hero. He's not even an anti-hero in the neat television sense. He's a compulsive killer with a code that happens to align, when the stars are right, with public fantasies about vigilante justice. The audience can cheer as he dismantles a rapist or a murderer, but the show never really lets that cheering sit comfortably. Every severed limb is a moral question mark. And yet, the longing for someone, anyone, to acknowledge that Dexter's victims had it coming is understandable. Lumen, in Season 5, comes closest to that missing audience surrogate. She experiences the same trauma as his prey, and for a fleeting moment she transforms Dexter's pathology into something almost noble. She doesn't see a monster, she sees a weapon. That's why her presence feels like a revelation. For once, someone in the narrative meets Dexter where the audience already is, half horrified, half grateful. It's no wonder Season 5 has quietly evolved from a meh entry to one of the most underappreciated arcs in the entire series. It's the first time Dexter's darkness becomes emotionally legible. The same principle explains why Dexter New Blood initially turned Harrison into an unbearable teenage cliché, and why Dexter Resurrection has made him fascinating again. Harrison becomes the mirror Lumen once was, the human voice that can recognize both the utility and the sickness in his father's code. Where Miami Metro sees a butcher, Harrison sees a man trying, in his own grotesque way, to aim his addiction towards something resembling good. He is the moral bridge the series always needed, the first to say aloud what everyone else avoids. Yes, Dexter is killing monsters, but he's also enjoying it far too much. It's not that the rest of the characters are blind. Deborah, for instance, explicitly recognizes the validity of Dexter's logic after the Speltzer case, and by Season 8, she even asks him to kill Hannah. Proof that moral infection spreads quickly. Her initial horror gradually mutates into complicity, but she still recoils from the one truth Dexter himself admits. He doesn't kill for justice. He kills because it feels right. Lumen and Hannah accept that truth and love him anyway. Deb never quite can. That inability to separate motive from method is the moral hinge of the entire series. Killing killers is one thing. Methodically wrapping them in plastic, stabbing them in the heart, taking trophies, and disposing of their remains in the Atlantic is quite another. It's the ritual that turns vigilante into psychopath. Even those who might agree with his target list find the process indefensible. The difference between a righteous avenger and a serial killer, as Dokes famously observed, is that one takes pleasure in the kill, and Dexter positively savors it. Still, there's a contingent of viewers who insist that the world would be better with a few more Dexters and a few less due process hearings. But morality doesn't work like a utility bill. You don't earn credits for selective decapitation. Dexter's victims may be irredeemable, but the act remains murder. No civilized society can hinge its moral authority on the whims of one emotionally stunted blood spatter analyst. Even within the show, those who stumble upon Dexter's secret and survive, Lumen, Hannah, Harrison, are civilians, not cops. Law enforcement cannot afford to rationalize murder, even efficient murder. That's why every detective who discovers the truth either dies or rejects him. They are guardians of process, not outcomes. Take Quinn, for example, a character too easily dismissed as filler, yet arguably one of the show's most quietly fascinating figures. He's neither noble nor righteous, merely human. He knows Dexter's secret, or at least suspects it. But he's pragmatic enough to leave the monster under the bed if the monster occasionally eats the right people. His moral compass points not north but towards survival and common sense. A Quinn cameo in Resurrection could elegantly upend the usual cop discovers Dexter, cop dies routine. Imagine the weary exchange. "I know what you do, Dex." Those scumbags had it coming. A shrug instead of a sermon. It would be one of the few genuinely realistic responses to a man like Dexter. Acknowledgement without absolution. The broader world of Dexter doesn't allow for that nuance, partly because it's full of cops and partly because the show understands its own narrative obligation. The writers cannot portray Dexter as anything other than a criminal. To do so would turn the series into a morality play for sociopaths. Every time the audience edges toward empathy, the show slaps their hand away with another innocent casualty. Rita, Lundy, the collateral damage of Dexter's secrecy. Even when he isn't directly responsible, his existence corrodes everything around him. He may remove murderers from society, but he also removes justice from their victims' families. Closure is impossible when the killer vanishes into the ocean. Dexter's own self-awareness underscores this truth. He calls himself a monster because he knows that the code isn't redemption, it's containment. Harry Morgan didn't teach Dexter to be good. He taught him to be undetectable. The first rule, don't get caught, says everything. It's not about serving the greater good, but about maintaining the illusion of normalcy. Even his cleanup ritual, that grotesque dance of plastic and precision, is less about conscience than about efficiency. The audience, of course, is complicit. Dexter is the fantasy of the moral shortcut, the dream that someone might finally punish those who slip through the cracks. But the fantasy collapses under scrutiny. In reality, a man who kills 150 people, dismembers them, and takes souvenirs would not be hailed as a folk hero. He'd be treated as what he is, a predator, who happens to prefer other predators. Society has always feared such figures. Even medieval executioners wore hoods not for theatrics, but because their neighbors refused to make eye contact with the man who dealt death, even on their behalf. Dexter's fans like to say he takes out the trash. Perhaps. But he also rearranges the garbage for art's sake, catalogs it, and admires his handiwork. His ritual is not civic duty. It's obsession disguised as order. Every kill is less about justice and more about feeding a compulsion, one that he's polite enough to schedule between breakfast with Harrison and a blood report for Masuka. And yet, the series refuses to strip him of humanity. That's why he endures as a cultural figure. He embodies the contradiction between justice and instinct, between control and chaos. Characters like Lumen and Hannah see the man beneath the monster, but they're exceptions that prove the rule. Everyone else, Dokes, Batista, Deb, LaGuerta, represents society's immune system, fighting back against the infection of moral relativism. Ultimately, no one in Dexter cuts him slack, because that would destroy the show's delicate moral architecture. A world where Dexter is right is a world where the law means nothing. It's a world that ends in blood, not order. The brilliance of Dexter lies in maintaining that tension, to make the viewer root for the killer while constantly reminding them why they shouldn't. Yes, it's tempting to imagine a grizzled Quinn returning to tell Dexter those bastards had it coming. But the truth remains. Even when Dexter's blade finds the right neck, it's still murder. He doesn't serve justice, he preys upon it. And that's precisely why everyone around him recoils, why even those who love him ultimately die or disappear. They recognize the simple, chilling truth at the core of the series. The moment society starts cheering for its executioner, it becomes the next name on his table. Hit subscribe, because the line between justice and obsession deserves a closer look.